stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Bam, check that. So we'll do this, we'll do this, and HDMI is going to plug in right there. And it's firing up. Now, while it's firing up, I'm going to plug in pointer. Here, take it out all the way first. Let's plug that in there. Yep. And then go on the other side of that cord. Here, like on the other side. Yep.
First thing this morning, this thing works, so.
That was this morning.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, good. Everything is going pretty well.
Do you need to switch your input to different HDMI, or is that the right?
So you need
Something just happened.
No. Goodbye.
There we go. Well, no, that's not me. Well, yeah, that is me. Yep. Okay. So I know exactly what's going on right now. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go here. YE presentation. Y'all are gonna be these are gonna be some happy people that showed up in this room.
Okay.
Check the slides. Boom, bada bing. Oh yes, we are good to go. Richie, you good on your end?
Yep. Ready when you are.
Okay. All right. So here's the deal, guys. I know for a fact this is going to be a lot of information. I know for a fact this is going to be a little long. There may be some people that come in and they may be a little lost, but one of the things that I'm doing to help everyone out is, in case we do run long, that is my direct website as well as my email address. If you want to take a picture of that, please go ahead and do so, because in the event that they do say, hey man, we're done, you know, yeah, check, yeah. In the event that they do say, hey guys, we're done, you know, you gotta go, all right, we gotta get you out of here, you'll still be able to go to my website, okay? From my website, once you're there, in the upper right hand corner of the website, there'll be a little drop down, and you just click it. This is the screen comes up. If you click Hemp 101, that will take you straight to the presentation that I recorded on YouTube, and it's going to be a lot of the same information that you get here, okay? So please know that you're going to be taken care of one way or another. With that being said, here we go. I'm a firm believer in this slide right here. They say in times of crisis, the wise build bridges while the foolish build barriers. We must find a way to look after each other as if we were part of one single tribe. I truly believe that in my core, simply because of everything that you guys have heard today, within these panel discussions and whatnot. They talk about wanting to take care of one another, but this is my personal opinion. They don't quite know how to take care of one another just yet, because there's been a lot of things that have been overlooked and omitted, and we're going to address and talk about those. So with this seminar today, we're going to do and cover some things. We're going to cover my background. We're going to cover some rules and regulations. We're also going to talk about a quick cannabis overview, because y'all have been getting cannabis all day. So we're going to spend very little time on cannabis. Then we're going to switch gears, and we're going to talk a lot and do a fiber overview. Then we're going to talk about testing in terms of, things like COAs and whatnot. And then after we talk about COAs, we're going to switch gears again after that, and we're going to talk a segment that I call I Don't Want to Pee Hot is what I call it. I want to say another word, but I put pee there instead, right? And then we're going to talk about some lessons learned as well as some bonus information. So rather than wasting a bunch of time, I'm just going to dive into it. So here we go. Me personally, I know I have cared a lot about Hawaii for a long time. I have cared about Hawaii since 2022. You may want to take another picture of this because this is a page that I own for Hawaii. It's called Hawaii Hemp Growers, okay? If you're watching on the camera, go to Facebook and look up Hawaii Hemp Growers. Please request access to it because right now, as of yesterday, it had 31 people on it. But here's the rub. Here's what actually pisses me on. Not pisses me off. It pisses me on. Simply because I'm fired up because there are 29 people that are on that page. That's not it. But see, here's the thing. I started that page back in March of 2022. So back since March of 22, I've been funneling information to Hawaii. But the 29 or 30 people that are on that page have been holding out. I'm just calling it like it is. They've been holding out. They've been sandbagging. They have, Shireen, thank you so much for the people that you invited. Hopefully more of them accepted and we will be good to go. But I'm calling out the BS. They've been sandbagging. They've been playing Johnny's Got a Secret, and that's why Hawaii is so behind, like those last presenters were just talking about. That's why. It's because people who know have been sandbagging. They've been getting the information and not sharing it with you. So with that being said, there's me at the beginning of all my glory right there. I joined the Air Force in 1995, in July of 1995. After I joined the Air Force, my first job in the Air Force was a medical laboratory technician. And when I went back and looked at the pictures, I was like, man, I had to put an arrow over myself. Because I'm like, man, I'm the only ink spot on that whole sheet of paper. Ain't that something, right? So that's a kind of, I want you to just remember that because it's going to come in handy here in a little bit, right? I'm like, man, ain't that something? So I started off that way as a medical laboratory technician. So if there's anybody who knows a little bit about drug testing, it's this guy, okay? Then from there, I transitioned to be a drill sergeant for 5 years. Then I came back medical for 4 years, and then my last 6.5 years, I was involved in aviation in the military. I was a flight engineer on C-130 aircraft. So my last 5 years, I deployed 3 times. All of them were combat environments. Then I retired in 2016. Now, when I retired in 2016, PTSD was kicking my butt bad. My first 2 months after I retired, I didn't leave home for anything other than to go to the gym. That was about it. I had no more people to serve. Right? I had a lot of things that I was dealing with. And then a buddy of mine called me and said, and this was in Oklahoma, he said, hey, I want to start an organization here. I want to start something, because I had a lot of trust with him, he had a lot of trust with me. He said, I want to start an organization here in Oklahoma to help farmers get the permits to grow hemp. Because farmers wanted to grow it, the Department of Agriculture wanted them to grow it, but there was nobody to step in the middle and help figure out the rules and regulations. So that's what I did, was I helped figure out the rules and regulations, and that was in 2016, and what I found out was, as we were going around and talking to farmers about growing hemp, because the first project that I was involved with, it was a buyer who wanted 400,000 acres to be grown in Oklahoma, and it was going to be grown for fiber purposes. The buyer was supposedly R.J. Reynolds, okay, cigarette manufacturer, cigarette paper made out of hemp, had the filter in cigarettes made out of hemp. And that's what we were told that we were growing for. So I take off like a mad dash and start, trying to help farmers understand things. And as we were growing out talking to farmers, I found out quick that farmers didn't know what we were asking. Because we were asking them to grow hemp for rope, not dope, right? And they were like, I ain't growing that stuff, that's devil's lettuce. And they turned their nose up at the opportunity. So what I found myself doing was putting together slides to help these guys figure out what we were talking about. And those slides that I put together for those farmers back then is what's become my Hemp 101 seminar that I teach to this day. So I've traveled around this country and I teach my seminar quite a bit. I've done different things. I actually taught my seminar 3 times at Texas A&M College Station. Texas A&M College Station, these are the 3 separate times that I went and taught at Texas A&M College Station, and A&M wrote me a letter of support for my seminar, saying this seminar is what the people need, right? Take it one step further after A&M. I've actually been to Comal County, Texas, Courtroom number 2. I had 15 lawyers in the courtroom teaching lawyers the difference between hemp and marijuana, okay? I did not go to jail. I did not end up in handcuffs. And that particular day, I was the only ink spot on that whole sheet of paper again, right? I'm like, there's a theme, what's going on here, right? So they actually wrote me a letter of support as well for my seminar. So if I have been doing this stuff, you know, at this caliber, I mean, I've learned a few things. And to pay no disrespect, actually pay homage to what everybody is out there, all the booths are set up for. They're out there in support of this one system called the endocannabinoid system, which is actually the master regulatory system for the body. If you don't know about this book, it was written by Dr. Terrell Newton, okay? The endocannabinoid system has 2 primary receptors, CB1 and CB2. CB1 receptors are primarily associated with brain and spinal column function. CB2 receptors are associated with nerve endings and immune responses. And if you guys need to know more about that, please email me and I'll send you a video from Dr. Rachel Knox on the endocannabinoid system, okay? But Dr. Terrell Newton is actually a good friend of mine. He gave me an autographed copy of the book. He even wrote an inscription in my personal autographed copy. So no way am I dissing cannabinoids. I want to make that clear. There are a few things that I'm going to talk about, that I'm going to put a spin on, that those people up here on the panel and just darker didn't talk about. I'm going to say the stuff, all right? So just give me a heads up. I am also the CEO of Active Duty RX. Active Duty RX is a CBD brand. It is a THC-free CBD brand. We've put extra cannabinoids in like CBGA, CBG, CBD, CBDA, CBN. These are all non-intoxicating cannabinoids that don't get people high. So guess what? All of these problems that everybody else is having to talk about, we don't have to worry about that because THC is not in our products. You see what I'm saying? It's possible to get people a lot of medical relief without the THC. I am not saying that it is best, but I am saying if you are a Department of Transportation worker, an active duty military member, firefighter, first responder, and you got 2 options. Keep hurting because none of the pills are working, or take something with no CBD but extra, because CBG has the ability to target some of the same receptors in the body as THC, but without the psychoactive effect. So that's what our brand targets, that's what our brand focuses on. Like I said, I am the CEO of Active Duty RX. Another thing that's unique about us, whereas, and I want, when y'all get out of here, I'm telling you, y'all are gonna be dangerous people to those rooms that are out there in that other room. You're gonna be dangerous because I want you to go ask, hey, how many of y'all are physician backed? Because me, myself, Dr. Tristan Lai, Air Force veteran, anesthesiologist, is my business partner. So my brand is physician backed. I don't have to make medical claims because my brand is physician backed and he is our chief medical officer, period, right? We also just brought on board Calvin Fry. Calvin Fry has 20+ years in cannabis. He's originally out of Hawaii. He's a dispensary owner himself and is doing a lot of things within this space. And I'm just kind of giving you guys all of this stuff so that y'all know that 1, I'm not dissing cannabinoids, and 2, I've learned a lot more other than just cannabinoids, okay? Within my company, we actually started an affiliate program. So if someone wants, if you're someone at home, I thought about myself when I started this. If you're someone at home sitting with PTSD and you don't want to go anywhere and you don't want to engage with extra people, but you want to make some extra money, that affiliate program is for you. If you're a single mother who just had a baby and you're at home on maternity leave, faced with the struggle of going back to work to pay for daycare or staying at home and not be able to take care of your child that well, this program is for you. Because what we are doing is we are paying out a so basically you get a link and a QR code that you own. I don't give a rip where you put them, okay? Facebook, Instagram, show your people individually, send them text messages. By doing so, by doing that, if people book from your link or your QR code, you yourself get a 22% commission in honor of the 22 veterans that commit suicide in this country every day. And if anyone is interested in that program, this is the flyer for it. You can scan this QR code right now. If I wasn't on stage, in 2 minutes, it takes 2 minutes to sign up with that QR code, okay? I approve it, you get your information, and you're off to the races today making money if you so choose to. Nobody's gonna contact you and make you. I'm just saying that this is an option that we incorporated. Now, a little bit of learning, a little bit of additional learning is going to kick in about cannabinoids now, because I'm showing you one of my product labels, okay? And this product label, there's a couple things I want to address. Is there anyone who does not know what a COA is? COA stands for Certificate of Analysis. So we all know what COAs are, okay? With our products, if you ever encounter a product that does not have a QR code on it, don't buy it, period. Because if it is a legit product and it has a QR code, when you scan that QR code should take you to something that looks like this, a certificate of analysis that gives you a breakdown of all the individual cannabinoids and their concentrations that are in the product that you just scanned. Did you happen to did you get my text message? So that's what happens when you scan a QR code. Another thing that you need to be on the lookout for, if you or someone you love is a firefighter, first responder, paramedic, someone who gets in trouble for having THC in their system, I don't give a shit what that person at that counter tells you. Oh yeah, this is good, man, everybody gets that one. No. If it does not say on that label, THC-free, verified, and tested, do not buy it if you are part of those career fields. Because a lot of people don't realize less than 0.3%, which is legal per the 2018 Farm Bill, and THC-free are two different things. Less than 0.3 or trace amounts will still get you fired if you are someone or working for someone who actually drug test. And I'm going to show you the slides and show you what actually happens behind that as well. Okay? So this is a pivotal story because one day Stephen Farrar, he owns Premise Medical Center in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I went to his clinic and taught his people my Hemp 101 seminar. And while I was there, Premise Medical Center, just so you guys know, they do a lot of initial screenings and return to work physicals for Department of Transportation truck drivers. Okay? Big outfits like Hertz, Swift, Penske. And I'm teaching my seminar to those guys, and they're like, yeah, that CBD stuff is great, but you know what? We wish more of our people could take it, but they can't. I'm like, why not? Well, they're going to pop positive on a drug test. I was like, no, they won't. He was like, yes, they will. I was like, no, they won't. I said, I tell you what, here's what I know for a fact. I walked into your front door today. I've had my own products in my system for 4.5 years, straight. And every now and then, it might have a little bit more than just my products too, all right? But I am telling you right now, go get me a cup. I'm going to give you an on-the-spot urinalysis with no notice. They were like, what? I was like, yep, go get me a cup. So on the spot with no notice, I gave them a urinalysis and a hair follicle. They had to shave my armpits because I did not have enough hair on the top of my head that day, okay? But here's what I'm sharing with you. I am sharing with you my direct drug testing results from my own products being in my system for 4.5 years. Now on my, the hair follicle, they did what's known as a 5-panel, where they tested for these 5 things. One of the 5 was marijuana, anything over 0.3% THC. As you see here, the results, negative, drugs detected, none. That's the lab report from my own drug testing, okay? On my urinalysis, they did what's known as a 10-panel, where they tested for the same 5 things, plus they added 5 more. But one of the 10, marijuana. Results negative, drugs detected, none. There's my name, there's the date that I was there, sample collection numbers, all of that stuff. So if I can walk into your organization and take a no-notice hair follicle and urinalysis, knowing that I've had this product in my system for 4.5 years straight, I think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And they were floored. So that goes back to saying, once again, not everybody needs THC, okay? And some people can get true medical relief without it. The THC, I will say THC, small concentrations will always be better because it helps open up some of those neurological pathways just enough to let other cannabinoids inside, okay? So once again, I'm not dissing, I'm paying mad respect to those people who do cannabinoids and sit on all the panels. Another thing that I actually do, I have a Facebook page called Veterans Benefit Forum where I actually help a lot of veterans figure out the VA process. That was before I met Theo. Shout out to Theo Alexander. He's head of CAMO. They do a lot of things here to help veterans figure out the VA process before stepping into the VA, okay? And with what they do amazing work. And on top of that, he's a fellow veteran himself, and He's one of my master distributors for Active Duty RX over here. And he has some amazing testimonies about our products as well. So please get with him and he can let you know about that. I am also 5% owner of a medical marijuana grow in Oklahoma, High Country Cannabis. That's me in our flower room at the grow. And I put my face in a lot of pictures when I do stuff because I literally have my hands in the mud doing stuff where everybody else goes and uses ChatGPT and I'm just gonna put this PowerPoint together. Nope, you better give people something substantial, let them know that you're real, make a difference in their lives, right? Like I said, I was the owner of Veterans Scientific Laboratories. I was one of the partners for that laboratory. This was a cannabis testing laboratory in San Antonio, Texas. There was our DEA registration, okay? Now the lab is no longer open, it's expired, because we shut it down because there was not enough participation from the local community. Sound familiar? Now y'all only have one testing laboratory here. You see what I'm saying? If there's not enough participation and you got all this high dollar ass equipment, yeah, you need people to do testing so you can pay for that equipment and keep the lights on. If not, you have to close. You have to. And then people are just kind of left with the leftovers. So with that being said, we're transitioning. And like I said, if you guys can kind of, there are going to be some questions that come up, but if you can, hold them to the end. Or if I answer them, I'm going to answer them real quick and keep going because I got a lot of information, like that old school Micro Machines commercial. The Micro Machines, so that's what I'm trying to do to y'all without doing it to you at the same time, okay? So when we talk rules and regulations, here's a little secret, guys. The government owns a patent on cannabis already, okay? So why would they own a patent already if there wasn't something that they already didn't know? So understand that there's a patent number, go research it, go look it up for yourself. With that being said, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this. Hopefully by now you guys know that marijuana and hemp are both cannabis, just like apples and oranges are both fruits, okay? The only difference is THC concentration. If the THC concentration is less than 0.3%, it is hemp. If it's greater than 0.3, it is marijuana. That's the only difference. They look the same, smell the same, smoke the same. One of them will get you higher than a kite. The other one, you can smoke a telephone pole of it and it won't do anything to you because the THC content, the psychoactive portion, is not high enough. So with that being said, I know y'all have heard people say and talk about the 2018 Farm Bill and the definition. This is the page from the Farm Bill. I didn't type it up. I literally put the page here so you could read the definition for yourself. And basically what it says, hemp, the term hemp means the plant Cannabis sativa L and any part including the seeds thereof, all derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids, isomers, acids, salts of isomers, whether growing or not, with the delta-9 THC concentration of not more than 0.3% on a dry weight basis, okay? I put delta-9 THC like that in green because there's a key component that you need to understand. There are different types of THC, okay? But on the federal level, they're concerned about delta-9 THC. Remember that. That's big fed. You got big fed, you got little fed, and then you got the individual states. Remember those three, okay? So big fed is concerned about delta-9 THC. Now, with that being said, there are over 120 different cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. It's three terms that I'm going to talk about real quick, just in case you haven't heard about them before, okay? And a lot of people say, well, JJ, that's not all the cannabinoids. Well, when you show people like this slide, their head can start to pop off. You don't want to do that. So you keep it real simple. You show them the major stuff first, okay? So there are three terms you guys need to be aware of: full spectrum, broad spectrum, and isolate, okay? When we're talking full spectrum products, I want you to think about light outside. I know this happens a lot in Hawaii, right? Where it's bright, sun shining, and then it rains, and it rains hard. And the next thing you know, you look off in the distance, you see a rainbow. Well, a rainbow is a full spectrum reflection of all the colors in the light prism. We know that. Your reds, your blues, your greens, your yellows. It's no different with the cannabis oil that you first get from the plant, because the oil that you get out of the plant is what we call a full spectrum oil. So instead of reds, blues, greens, yellows, you have CBD, CBDA, CBG. You have all these different cannabinoids. And every cannabinoid in the plant is good for alleviating certain conditions, okay? Now, the one the federal government is concerned about is this one right here, Big Fed, delta-9 THC. If that one's greater than 0.3%, wacky tobacco, all right? If it's less, we're talking hemp, okay? Now, there are other forms of THC as well, and understand these will get you jammed up. They will get you in trouble if you're a firefighter, first responder, paramedic, one of those, types of entities. So through time and temperature combinations of manipulating the oil that you get from the plant, you can extract some of this stuff out. So one step down from full spectrum is something we call broad spectrum. Now, broad spectrum is technically 2 or more cannabinoids in a solution combined. But for these purposes, you notice we took all of the THCs out, but you can leave other things in, okay? By doing so, like the product that you have a broad spectrum, THC-free product that will alleviate a lot of conditions in the body. You see what I'm saying? Okay? Now, through more time and temperature combinations of extraction, you can isolate down to just the CBD molecule by itself. Okay? So the 3 terms you need to be aware of are full spectrum, broad spectrum, isolate. But something that's made out of isolate will help with a lot of stuff. But something made out of isolate is not as good for you as something that's broad spectrum is, and something that's broad spectrum is not as good for you as something that's full spectrum. But based on your employment, you have to be careful. And that's what people need to understand. Don't get jammed up with your employer because you don't know the HR policy about testing, okay? So that's what you have to be aware of. Now, there are some tricky things that happen whether you're talking federal level or state level. And I use Texas as an example because that's the last state that I was involved with, and there's a lot of bullcorn that happens in the state of Texas. But I'm gonna address it and I'm gonna talk about it so you know what I'm referring to. So when we're talking federal level and we talk the Controlled Substances Act for Texas, or the federal level, the Farm Bill directed that the Controlled Substances Act amended to the definition of tetrahydrocannabinols except for THC in hemp. So basically, they're calling it THC unless it's hemp. If it's hemp, they're not classifying it. That's on the federal level. Now, that's the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Whatever state you live in, you always need to be aware of what's happening at the state level as well, because the states can change and amend their individual CSAs and add or take away. They can be more strict, but they can't be less strict than the federal level. So, I hear a voice. Am I hearing things?
Other side of that wall.
Oh, okay, all right. So when we're talking state TSA and we're talking Texas, okay, Texas started off with their definition being the same, but then they came down here and they said natural occurring in the plant genus, except for 0.3% Delta-9 THC in hemp, as defined as Texas Agriculture Code 121. Check this out. Here's the rub, and here's what you have to be aware of. This is what they did. As well as synthetic equivalents of substances contained in the cannabis plant or in the resinous extractives of such plant and or synthetic substances. What is that? Delta-8. You see what I'm saying? So the feds are okay with certain things, but on the state level, they're not. And you have to know for Hawaii what's going on, and you have to review, because I'm not well versed on all states. I cover 29, okay? So you need to check and see what the Controlled Substances Act is for out here, because it's very well possible they're hammering you guys about certain things because the state level CSA is more strict and not less strict than the federal level. So that's what you have to be aware of there. Yes, sir?
I could hold it. The synthetic substance, is that what they consider the CBG, all the other versions?
So let's go back, and I'm glad. Thank you for saying that, because there's something that I forgot. Okay, when we isolate down to just the CBD molecule by itself, it looks like a white powdery substance. It looks like cocaine. You see a brick of isolate, it's like, oh shit, I'm gonna get the hell out of this room. This is the wrong room, right? Or some people might want to stay and play, baby. You never know, all right? But what they do, what they've been doing, is they take things like hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid, and they add it to CBD isolate to cook it. Not sure if you're aware, but that's the same stuff they use to make methamphetamine. Okay? So they cook it, reverse engineer it to get it to the Delta-8 phase. That's a synthetic way of producing it. It's not naturally occurring. Now, Delta-8 is naturally occurring in the plant, but in very minuscule trace amounts. Not enough to keep up with the demand for all these gummies and stuff. Okay?
You see them like gas stations. That's what
So a lot of people made a lot of money with Delta-8, but then the states started to get wise. They updated their CSA, right? And now they can't do that anymore. And now people are pissed because they're taking that Delta-8 away from them. That's why that stuff is happening. And that's why people are all up in arms in their state capitals. This Delta-8's helping us. Well, somebody's like funding the, because you made a whole lot of money and you can afford the attorneys to go and now lobby for that stuff. But we got natural versus synthetic, and based on what state you're in, that could come back and bite you in the butt. And that's what's happening in a lot of places. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
Well, no, it makes sense too as well with the conversations that everybody's been having before.
So I'm gonna keep moving because, like I said, we got a lot of stuff to cover, and I want to try to get it all in for you. So we got big Fed, and we got state level. Okay. Now, big Fed is federal. I call USDA little Fed. Okay, because when the USDA came out with their interim guidance, they put some things in there to be more strict, but not less strict than Big Fed, okay? And one of the things that they put in the interim USDA rules, they said samples must be tested using post-decarboxylation or other similar reliable analytical methods. Post-decarboxylation is a fancy word for pyrolysis, or setting it on fire, okay? When you set something on fire, it decarboxylates it. It takes that extra carboxyl carbon molecule out, okay, when you set it on fire. But it doesn't do it until you set it on fire, okay? So these are some, this is a chart. You can take pictures of anything that you see here if you guys want to. This just shows different cannabinoids and different heat activation temperatures for certain cannabinoids, okay? So with that being said, here's another one as well of different cannabinoids that are activated at certain temperatures. So in the interim USDA guidance is the first place where post-decarboxylation was mentioned. It wasn't mentioned in the federal definition or the federal guidance. And right after the USDA came out with their interim guidance, guess what? Something happened. The Department of Agriculture, the Honorable Sonny Perdue's office, came out with this statement in November of 2019. And I have been posting this since then, okay? I've been talking about this since it came out. Because they came down here and they said in this statement, instead of allowing for similar, reliable, non-decarboxylation tests to be used to be measured delta-9 THC, the interim final rule introduced new requirements contrary to the specified language of the 2018 Farm Bill that hemp samples must be tested using methods where THC concentrations levels reported accounts for the conversion of delta-9 THCA into THC. As authors of the Hemp Farming Act of 2018 that was included in 2018 Farm Bill, we strongly believe that this is a complete reversal of the congressional intent expressed in law and requires testing that Congress specifically did not include. So to make a long story short, when you set so anybody ever heard of THCA flower? Like THCA flower is basically weed that has not been set on fire yet. If you eat it, you will not get high, okay? But the minute you set it on fire, what it does, it actually metabolizes the A. The A stands for acid. And when you set it on fire or you heat it enough, you metabolize that acid, and the only thing left for it to convert to is delta-9 THC. So for instance, delta-9 THCA, you heat it enough, it removes the acid, and the only thing that you're left with is delta-9 THC. So that's one of those. So now they know that THCA flower is basically weed that has not been set on fire. Keep that in mind, because that's going to come into play a little bit later when we talk about sales and whatnot, okay? Another thing they talked about in the interim rules before the rules went final, they said laboratories, this interim rule requires that laboratories calculate and include measurement of uncertainty when they report THC results. Basically, a measurement of uncertainty, all that is if I go to Theo's house and I stand on his scale, I might weigh 200 pounds, okay? I go to Dr. Carter's house, stand on his scale, I may weigh 195 pounds instead of 200 pounds. I like going to his house more because I'm 5 pounds lighter, right? Because his scale is better than Theo's scale, right? You suck. You need to get another scale for your house. But here's the thing about it. When it comes to testing, different laboratories, they have different scales, right? They have different testing equipment, and they're all calibrated just a little bit different. So you need to have some kind of fudge factor in the numbers to account for the different testing methods, and that's what they call measurement of uncertainty. So basically, with that being said, here's what it looks like with the real world example. Let's say you have your product tested, and the real world number when it comes out for THC is 0.35. Now, we all know that 0.35 is greater than 0.3. So technically, you're done. You're done right there. That's over 0.3, you're done. But if the laboratory that you're testing with, if they have a measurement of uncertainty of plus or minus 0.06, now you have a range. So anything from down to 0.29 up to 0.41 is still legal. So measurement of uncertainty is something you guys need to be aware of when you're looking at products, or if you're thinking about growing and you're doing testing and things like that. That's how measurement of uncertainty works, okay? And they said in the interim guidance, for purpose of this part, Delta 9 THC and THC are interchangeable. They are different cannabinoids. They're not the same, okay? So there were some things that were kind of like, and they took a lot of feedback when they came out with the interim rules and the interim guidance, because they were saying, you know, Delta 9 THC and THC, they're not the same, okay? So with that being said, it also said laboratories who conduct THC testing must be registered with the DEA to handle controlled substances and DEA regulations, Well, as somebody who owned a lab that was registered with the DEA, let me tell you what that meant. It had nothing to do with the numbers that we were reporting out. Nothing. It had nothing to do with how good our instrumentation was. It had everything to do with the security protocols associated with our facilities. Did we have magnetic locking doors? Did we have a sign-in sheet? If there was anything that tested over 0.3%, did we have somewhere to have it locked until we could dispose of it? And then, did we have security cameras facing that lock to make sure that nobody tampered with it until we destroyed it? That's all the DEA registration was about, okay? And as far as our disposal protocol, we submitted to the DEA. I cannot make this up. We literally said to the DEA, every Tuesday, anything that we have that's over 0.3%, we're gonna take it out back and throw it in the dumpster. That was our protocol for getting rid of it. So if somebody just so happened to know what day we were doing it and they were out there dumpster diving, woohoo, we good, right? So that was literally our protocol with the DEA, and they, yep, you're good to go. All right, roger that, got it. So that's what we did, right? So when the USDA came out with their final rules, after enough people bitched, griped, and complained about some of the stuff that they were saying, a few things changed, but they even got a little bit trickier when they came out with the final rules for this stuff. And there were some things that make you go, right? And one of those was, this was the first place that they actually mentioned total THC. Not Delta 9 THC, but total THC. Because once again, remember, we're talking little fed. They can be more strict, but not less strict than big fed. So I'm thinking total THC, and I'm from Mobile, Alabama. Total, well, you add it all up, anything that's got a THC in front of it, you add it up, and it's still got to be under 0.3. So I thought. But that's not what it was. And they actually mentioned total THC several times within their publications. But here is the calculation for total THC right here. It only involves 2 cannabinoids, guys. What they were doing, or what they say, is you're supposed to take the amount. So on a COA, when you're reading a COA, you take the THCA concentration, multiply it by 0.877, and then you add that to the Delta 9. So the only 2 cannabinoids that are involved with the total THC calculation are THCA and Delta 9 THC. Those are the only 2. Did I say Delta 8? Nope. Did I say Delta 10? Nope. Did I say HHC or any of these others that they've come up with? No. Those are the 2. So if there's nothing regulating Delta 8, and you know how to reverse engineer, it's game on. Because it's not THCA and it's not Delta 9. Understand. Those are the times that we're living in. And these are things that you guys need to understand. And hopefully with the next revision of the Farm Bill, it gets more clearer and it's more guidance. They have to decide, are you going to go with total THC or are you going to go with Delta 9 THC? Who knows? Still to be determined, still to be seen. So once again, THC, so if you have something that has THCA, once you set it on fire, it metabolizes the A and it converts over to Delta 9. That's all I was trying to show there. Okay? Now check this out. These are products that are being sold. Check that out. THCA, 22.3% THCA. Now, based on that calculation that I just gave you, you are going to get higher than a kite legally if you buy this, okay? Because they were concerned about Delta 9 THC in Big Fed, but Little Fed came up with the THCA stuff, okay? So you got to understand, and basically the easiest way that I can put this for you guys, when the plant is growing out of the ground, still attached to the ground, okay, it falls under the Ag Department and USDA. But the minute that that plant is harvested, authority transfers to Dyess, Department of Safety Health Services. Now, when it's growing out of the ground, total THC. But when it changes over to Dyess, they're only concerned about Delta 9 in certain states. So you got to understand how the plant is growing to know what affects you for your particular state. Okay? We don't need that slide. But here's another kicker. And like I said, I talk a little bit about cannabinoids to kind of give everybody some props, but then we're going to switch gears here in just a minute, and it's going to get real good. But this is something that you guys need to know that was in that finalized guidance. And this was like, aha, I got you when I saw this. Because they said Dr. Small, in his research that derives 0.3% threshold, was used for the basis for the 2018 Farm Bill requirement and is used by law enforcement as a threshold to differentiate between hemp from marijuana. Now, I knew about the source document, which is Dr. Small's publication, and I already knew what the source document said. So his publication is actually called A Practical and Natural Taxonomy for Cannabis, written by Dr. Ernest Small and Arthur Conquest. And when you look in this publication and you read what it says, this is the page, y'all. I didn't type this up. This is the page. It says, it will be noted that we arbitrarily, right? You make it up, right? So they arbitrarily adopted the concentration of 0.3% Delta 9 THC in young, vigorous leaves of relatively mature plants as the guide to discriminating the two classes of plants. It says in the young, vigorous leaves, but when people are coming out and they're testing the buds. They're testing the highest concentration, and some states were doing, the top buds have more concentration of cannabinoids than the bottom buds, because the top ones are the oldest, the younger ones are the bottom ones are the younger ones. So they've taken a number of 0.3 that they made up, and they're applying it to the wrong part of the freaking plant that they're actually testing and holding everybody accountable to. And this is in the source document. Understand that. I'm not smart enough to make this stuff up. Okay? There's the document right there. And they even said it multiple times. Intoxicating plants, upper, young, vigorous leaves. So, when you hear people talking about things about labs messing with test results, all these laboratories have to do literally, if it's a crooked lab and they're pay to play, we were not. But I know what some people do. All they literally had to do was take some of those freaking leaves and add them to the mixture before they test somebody's stuff to get the THC down, to get them below 0.3. So you got to know your lab. You got to have a great working relationship with your laboratory to make sure that they're doing it right. So with that being said, moving on to some of the fun stuff. We're done with all the stuff you got. We're done with all the panel discussion type stuff. We're going to move on, okay? All right, moving on to the fun stuff. Cannabis overview. So, oh my God, dude is killing me. I know. So, this is the version of the plant that is grown for cannabinoids. It grows 4 to 6 feet tall, okay, and it's primarily grown for the buds and the leaves. This is what it looks like when it's being dried, okay? Because the reason they take it, they cut it low, they hang it upside down, so that way all of the cannabinoids that are in the stalk gravity feed out to the leaves and to the bud to get the concentrations higher. That's what they do during the drying process, okay? This is what that plant looks like when they've actually trimmed all the extra leaves off. And this is some of the equipment that's actually used when people are growing it for biomass. They don't care what it looks like. That's why they don't care if this equipment touches it, because the equipment's going to tear it up, but they're growing it to be extracted. They don't care what it looks like to the aesthetics because it's going to be extracted. Okay? So a lot of people have to understand, what are you growing for before you ever put a seed in the ground? If you're growing for smokable flower, don't let this equipment touch it. You need hands on those plants every day. But if you're growing it for biomass, it's okay, because this will collect it by the masses, and they're going to take it and they're going to add some solvents to it like ethanol, soak it, get all the cannabinoids out, and then they're going to do stuff with the oil. So it really all depends on what you're growing for. Now, this is something that can be dangerous to a grow. You want female plants. You don't want any male plants. Because if you see any male plants with those little pollen sacs bust, they will cross-pollinate your crop. And then the next thing you know, you have to grow it out for seed, because if you grow it out to be extracted, if you grow it out for smoking, nobody wants to smoke seeds. So if you grow for true biomass purposes, you need to be on the lookout for male plants in your grow. If you're growing for smokable flower, you need to be on the lookout for male plants in your grow. Now, if you're growing for fiber, you kind of get what you get. You don't have to worry about it. And we're going to flip gears to fiber in just a second. But I wanted y'all to see what a male plant looks like growing in the field. I also wanted you to see what a CBD grow looks like from a grow for fiber, which we're going to talk about in a second. And this is for fiber grain, and then this is one for fiber hemp. So we're going to talk about all those here in just a minute as well. And if anyone wants to take a picture of this, feel free. This is a farmer in Texas that I knew that was growing 18 acres, okay? And he was growing for biomass. So you can see some of the costs associated with when he was growing for biomass. Now, people, when I put this slide up in the past, people used to be like, well, JJ, what does this number mean? Well, I don't understand what this number. Hell, I don't either. He just sent me a picture, right? So I called him, and I'm like, hey, man, do you mind if I put your number up so people can call you and ask you questions about this stuff? Because he's like, yeah, sure. So there's the guy's number. If you have questions about those numbers, call him. Call him and ask him. He'd love to hear from you. Tell him JJ said hi, all right? He's probably like, damn it, that's another one, all right? So when you talk about extracting the oils, this is the first phase of oil that you get. It's called crude oil. It's a black crude substance. It looks like burnt motor oil. And this is full spectrum, guys, okay? But this full spectrum actually contains fats, waxes, and lipids. And a lot of times you extract that stuff out. Now, when you extract that stuff out, that's what it looks like. And they use a lot of this stuff for makeup, you know, and things like that. But when you extract this out, you actually are in the process of concentrating it to get it to a phase that they call distillate. And distillate is very, very, very concentrated. But this distillate still has THC in it, okay? Now, like I said before, through time and temperature combinations of manipulating the oil, you can actually extract the THC out, and that's what THC-free distillate looks like, okay? Wanted you to see a picture of it and see them side by side so you would know the two, okay? This is what isolate looks like when you've isolated down to just the CBD molecule by itself. This is the stuff that they were combining with hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid and reverse engineering to get to the delta 8 phase, okay? Just wanted you to see that. And these are the differences. A lot of people don't know the difference between hemp oil and CBD oil, okay? Hemp oil comes from hemp seeds. Little known fact, when you have seeds, seeds don't contain cannabinoids. Seeds contains omega-3s, omega-3s, omega-6s, as well as protein, okay, from the seeds. CBD oil comes from the floral material, and it gets extracted for CBD uses. So you could literally you could know that they're weed seeds. Like straight up, you know if you grow these seeds out there over 0.3%. But when they're seeds and you have them tested, they're not going to test positive for cannabinoids. You got to grow the plant out to get it to test positive for cannabinoids, okay? These are some of the vitamins and minerals associated with hemp seed oil. Feel free to take a picture of that if you so choose, okay? And here are some of the body components that are involved with the endocannabinoid system. I'm not going to talk about the endocannabinoid system during this presentation, but I just wanted you guys to have an idea of some of the organs and body parts that are affected by the endocannabinoid system. Wanted you to see that. Also wanted you to see this chart as well. Feel free to take a picture because certain cannabinoids will help alleviate certain pains in the body. or do certain things for nausea, sedation, diabetes. So those cannabinoid combinations, without me making medical claims, are known to assist with certain conditions in the body. Wanted you to have that, okay? And something else you guys need to be aware of, CBG. CBG is known as the mother molecule in the plant, okay? And with CBG, most of the cannabinoid production starts out as CBG, but as the plant continues to grow and mature, here comes CBD, here comes THC, here comes CBN, as time goes on and matures within the plant, okay? This is just a terpene chart. You've heard them talk about terpenes and how terpenes do different things. These show different terpenes here, boiling temperatures and whatnot. Feel free to take a picture of that if you choose to, okay? This is some of the extraction equipment that's used to extract, to get to those oils. And I'm just gonna go through them real quick, just so that you see what they actually look like, okay? And they use to get to the crude oil phase. And this is some of the extraction equipment that's used to get to the distillate phase. With that being said, guys, that is the conclusion of cannabinoids. Now we're gonna flip gears and talk about fiber, because there's another version of this plant. See, this is what I'm excited about right here, because nobody out there knows what I'm about to tell y'all right now, all right? So there's another version of this plant that does not grow 4 to 6 feet tall. It actually grows 15 to 20 feet tall. And that is not a midget. That's a full-grown man, okay? Yeah, it grows 15 to 20 feet tall. This is the one that's used for paper products, plastics. The first and second draft of the Declaration of Independence is written on hemp paper. Henry Ford in 1943 made a car called the Model T. Door panels were made out of a hemp composite and it ran on a hemp biofuel, okay? If you cut down an acre of trees, it takes 15 to 20 years for an acre of trees to grow back. You cut down an acre of this every 90 to 120 days. You can go do the same thing again, again, and again. So since you guys don't necessarily have a winter here, you may be able to get 3 to 4 cuts done per year, and it does not consume as much water for growth as trees, okay? This is my buddy Wade Atbury. He is 6'2". Look at that plant. He's 6'2", okay? Now this one, you're not necessarily growing it for this floral material to be extracted. You're growing it for the stock of the plant, okay? Now, this shows a lot of the textile uses for the plant when you're growing it that way, okay? Feel free to take a picture of that if you so choose, okay? But when you cut it down and you look at it from a side profile, this is what the stalk looks like. The outer portion is what we call bast fiber. The inner portion is what we call hurd. Now here's another picture of the bast fiber separated from the hurd. So the bast fiber is what they're gonna use for ropes, ship sails. Patagonia has a clothing line, things like that. Paper products, that's what bast fiber is used for. Hurd is used for other things. Here's a picture of the bast fiber completely separated from the hurd. And the way it got that way is because of special equipment that's called decortication equipment. I'm gonna show you a picture of that in a second. But what I wanted to show you about hurd first was, so we already talked about the uses for bast fiber, but when you take the combination of hurd, lime, and water, and you mix them together, it makes a substance called hempcrete, okay? But before we talk about hempcrete, these are pictures of the decortication equipment that's used to separate that fiber from the hurd. It's real big equipment, guys. It takes up a lot of space. It takes up a lot of room. Sometimes you have to do multiple passes. So if you're growing for fiber and you get it baled up into a round bale or a square bale, so right here, there's a bale right there at the very beginning before it starts feeding through that machine, okay, to separate the fiber from the hurd, okay? More decortication equipment, okay? Now, this is a piece, I like this one best in my opinion because you don't have to do multiple passes to get the material real clean. Because one of the things I'll tell you is this, they're starting to make tampons out of, hemp fiber, okay? And you don't want any hurd mixed in with that fiber, okay? That would not feel good. So you want really clean material. This is a machine that does it in one pass. You have conveyors that hook up, put the plant in there, and it shoots it out of the bottom and sends it out. I actually helped this company acquire this piece of equipment because it splits it along the natural lines of fissure, uses a resonance technology to naturally separate the fiber from the hurd instead of having to do multiple passes to get it clean time and time again. So I just wanted you to see that. And that material coming off of that machine, that last one that I showed you here, it comes off in 3 phases. Because if you're talking about using it for hempcrete production, you want to use this stuff. But this more micronized, powdery stuff, that's what they're using in hemp plastics right now, okay? But here, you guys do not have anybody who has a decorticator. Understand, if somebody wants you to plant for fiber purposes, the first thing you need to ask them is, where are we gonna get it decorticated? If they can't tell you, you tell them to kick rocks, because they're setting you up for failure. You need to have decorticators in order to be able to separate this stuff and get it, you know, to where it needs to be. Without it, you would pay an arm and a leg shipping this stuff to the States to get it properly decorticated, and if they don't have a buyer for it, they need to send it back to you because it can't stay at their facility. So you guys need to have your own decorticator here, hint, hint, wink, wink, if you want to have the tiger by the tail for what happens in the future, okay? Like I said, rope, ship sails back in the day, military uniforms were made from these fibers, okay? There are several companies that are actually doing fabrics. My friend Summer Haskey owns Enviro Textiles, okay? They're taking fabric. So next year, I want to see more of those hemp fabrics out there when they're doing their modeling lines for whatnot, okay? So that's that. Audi and BMW actually use hemp in their door panels right now, okay? Understand that. So that's something that's real. Audi, BMW, and I'm not sure if it's Mercedes as well, but there's another car carrier or another car manufacturer that does. Harley Davidson has kind of jumped on that train too, okay? Harley Davidson started using hemp plastics in some of their bikes. And me being me, I don't just want to see it. No, I got to see it for myself. So I went to a Harley dealership. That front white piece and the back one, those are made out of hemp plastics, okay? Like I was telling you earlier, the combination of herd, lime, and water mixed together makes a substance called hempcrete, okay? When you mix it together, and this was me out actually mixing some hempcrete at a seminar that I was involved with, but when you mix it together, you can make hempcrete blocks that look like this. And when you make something out of hempcrete, okay, it is mold resistant, pest resistant, fire retardant. You can literally put a blowtorch right against it for hours and it will not catch on fire, okay? So I'm assuming there was a big fire that happened here a few years ago, very sad and tragic. But if those houses were made out of hempcrete, they would not have burned down, okay? So with that being said, this was a project I was involved with in San Antonio, Texas. This was the foundation. They actually put hempcrete in there instead of insulation. Then they put the walls up. The hempcrete's still down here, okay? But then they put forms on the outside of the walls, and they packed the hempcrete in the center, okay? And they would move the forms up, pack some more hempcrete in, move it up. And when you take the forms off, that's what hempcrete looks like without the forms at that point. It's pretty light. It's very light. It's not heavy like a concrete block. It feels like, it's almost like an oatmeal consistency, you know, like mix up, you know, when you make your oatmeal, it kind of feels like oatmeal when you're mixing it up, but it's very light and kind of fluffy at the same time too, okay? This is what a whole wall, you know, of hempcrete looks like, okay? And this is what the inside of that building structure looks like. And this is when they went back over with a coat of lime plaster, okay? Now, to this day, well, this is my buddy Ray Catterley. He was the one who built that, him and Andrew Hancock. To this day, that's what that project looks like in San Antonio, Texas. That's a hempcrete juice bar. So they literally make hemp smoothies there. They take the buds and the leaves and they juice them. They don't set them on fire. They juice them because nobody's getting high. Anybody ever been jammed up by the cops and you had some weed and you swallowed it to get out of that jam and you noticed you didn't get high? That's because you didn't set it on fire. Set it on fire, it'd be a bad day, okay? So this is another project that's going on in San Antonio, Texas, where they built out of hempcrete as well, okay? I went out and watched that one go up. My buddy Ray Catterley, he's doing things out there. Now, with this one, this is the first coat of the hempcrete, okay? This is the hempcrete. This is the first coat of the lime plaster that goes on top of it. They call it a scratch coat, okay? Because hempcrete is something that is moisture open. The walls actually breathe. During the day when the sun is really hot, beating down, that hempcrete is absorbing it. It's also absorbing carbon at the same time. And in the evening, it releases the heat into the home. and it starts all over again the next day. So your heating and cooling costs go down tremendously. And this is what the final coat of lime plaster looks like on top, okay? And that's what it's further along now. They're actually getting ready to rent that house out, but I just wanted you to see what it looked like at that point in time. These are some other friends of mine that lived in Lindale, Texas. I went and visited them in 2019. They were building out of hempcrete as well, okay? Now, he's a Navy veteran, and like I said, you can see the hempcrete in the walls. The hempcrete takes the place of the insulation. It's not structural in this fate when you do it like this. They are starting to make hempcrete blocks now that are structural. So you can literally have your concrete slab and bring a bunch of blocks up and stack them like Legos and actually make you a house. Okay, they're making structural blocks now. But this is the more recent picture, and I found out when I went back and visited them the second time that in Texas a couple years ago they had Snowmageddon when it got real cold, kind of like now. Well, they didn't have electricity or heat going to that house at the time, and they went and worked on it. It was like -6 degrees outside. Inside of the house, it was 43 degrees with no heat, no electricity. So the thermal properties of hempcrete are amazing, and you guys definitely need to look into that more and more. This is what they did on the inside wall structure. They left it open a little bit at the bottom so people could see the hempcrete in the wall, okay? It's another picture of what it looked like there, okay? These are some of those structural blocks that I was talking about that they're starting to manufacture. I know Derek Wolf, who actually manufactured these hempcrete blocks. There are several companies that are doing hempcrete blocks now as well. And some of them, they're filling in between to make them insulative, and some of them they're actually using to make them structural as well. But that's what hempcrete blocks are actually looking like. They're starting to do tiny houses out of hempcrete because not everyone wants to build a big house at first. They're doing smaller homes to prove concept to, the market. And this is actually in the building codes now for the United States. I want to say it was last year it got approved by the building codes in the U.S. So this is something that you can build with as long as you have an architect that can sign off on the designs, okay? They're actually doing paneling now. So instead of building on site, they're actually forming panels in factories and bringing the panels out to job sites and standing those panels up, linking them together, and they're making houses. These are things that are going on now, okay? They're also doing hemp insulation. They call it bat insulation. They're doing that now. A lot of bat insulation is fire resistant as well, but not much so as hempcrete itself, okay? They're doing hemp rebar now as well. They call it, my buddy calls it tree bar. So there are a lot of industrial purposes for this. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not gonna show both of the videos that I have. I'm gonna show you one though. This is Ray Catterley. They built a hempcrete block. This is 1,000 degrees on this side, and on the other side, he had his hand on it, okay? 1,000 degrees, hand. Not saying ouch, not getting burned. Those are the thermal properties of hempcrete, okay? Here's another picture. And next up, this is the actual video. Oh, I forgot. They don't have me hooked up to speakers here, but I'm just gonna play it anyway.
We're going to demonstrate a
Oh.
fire test on a block that we made utilizing a grown hemp plant. This is the hempcrete. It's things are a little different on the wood, and we'll see how that does. But what we're going to do is we're going to put heat. We've got our heat measuring gun right here. So right now, we're at 63.3 degrees. And then we're going to take it a little bit hotter than that, and then we're going to measure the temperature on the other side as well.
So 63.3 on one side. So that's the heat gun that they were using to check the thermal dispersion as they were doing this test. So now he's about to light her up. Now let me see you do that to your house. Do that to any wall in your house. Let's see how long it stands up, right? Now you see the wood, see? 598. Now the wood is starting to singe a little bit because it's wood, but the hempcrete has not caught on fire. They got over 900 degrees. See what I'm saying? And in the interest of time, I'm not going to show the rest of the video, but I'll just kind of talk about it a little bit. When you cut this stuff and you actually look at it, it does not penetrate that deep into the material. It does not penetrate deep at all into the material. The second video I have shows it, but I'm not going to have time to show the second video, but I just wanted you guys to see that for yourself and know that I, myself, the second video is right here. It's a little bit longer. We're not going to do that because I got to hook up my phone up to the internet, so I don't have Wi-Fi in here and everything. So, but just know that I have been posting this since 2022. When did those fires happen? 2023, 2024. So as soon as I saw the tragedy that happened over here, I started posting about hempcrete. Hey guys, when you get ready to rebuild, please consider hempcrete, hempcrete, hempcrete. Deaf ears, crickets. Or either those 32 people that were on the page knew about it, doing low-key stuff and not telling anybody about it. So they're actually making these like Lego blocks now that you can actually bring out and stack on job sites as well. I get very excited about hemp wood. Now, hemp wood is different from hempcrete, okay? With hemp wood, what they do is they take that same stock, they don't decorticate it, they just crush it. They crush it, and they put a soy-based glue on it, and then they gather it, and they let it dry a little bit, and then they actually put it in a press to combine it, and then they put it in an oven and bake it. And when they bake it, the blocks come out looking like this. But when the blocks come out, they actually shave it off. They shave the blocks into boards that look like this. And you can do a lot of amazing things. My buddy Greg Wilson is the owner of the Hemp Wood Company in Murray, Kentucky. Greg is a personal friend. This entire floor is hemp wood flooring, okay? So they're doing hardwood floors out of hemp wood, okay? Guess what? This is my mama's living room floor in Mobile, Alabama. My mama's house is the only house in Mobile, Alabama that has a hemp wood floor, okay? So understand, I truly believe in hemp wood, and I literally, you know, me and my cousin, we actually installed that, you know, in the house in my mom's living room, okay? Like I said, Greg Wilson is a personal friend. He's a real good guy. If anyone ever needs hemp wood over here, guess what? It's real easy. They have little sample kits that cost like 30 bucks. You can go to hempwood.com, get you a sample kit, look at all the different varieties, select what you want. You can always email me if you need to be put in contact with him as well. I can make that happen. It's not a problem. Greg Wilson also has a project going for BMW as well, where they bought some hemp wood from him and using it for the wood grain panels in certain BMWs. I think they were doing prototypes with that. But you can actually do all kind of things. They do pins, you can do display cases, you can actually do picture frames, all of that stuff with hemp, okay? Nobody out there is talking about this kind of stuff, but y'all are the first ones to kind of know about it, okay? Oh, is that a guitar made out of hemp? Hemp wood? What? Yeah, my buddy Morris Beagle, I picked that up for him on the way to NOCO. I picked it up in Texas and took it to Colorado for an event that we were doing up there. So I actually made the trip to Murray, Kentucky to the Hemp Wood Company. So when I tell you I know Greg Wilson, I know Greg Wilson. Greg Wilson lived in China for like 18 to 20 years, and he did bamboo floors and mastered that process in China before ever bringing hemp wood here to the United States. So great relationship, great guy. They do a lot of amazing things in Murray, Kentucky. Anything made from plastic can be made out of hemp, okay? You got hemp straws that are out there that people know about. You take your micronized herd that comes off of those decorticator machines, and they use it. It's not 100% hemp plastic, but if you take 5 to 10% and substitute and make it biodegradable, yeah, those are hemp straws, okay? They actually do sunglasses as well, you know, made out of hemp plastic. They're doing different types of bottles, forks, knives, spoons. Dr. Carter, you'll be proud of this one right there that says made in Alabama from sustainable crops. So they're literally making those in Alabama somewhere. I don't know where just yet, but they're making those in Alabama. I'm gonna find out. I keep forgetting to find out, but they're making those in Alabama. Now we switch gears and we talk about testing, Okay? With testing, we're talking about reading those COAs. I give you a little bit more detail on how to read COAs properly. So when you're standing in that store trying to decide what products are right for you or your significant others, and you've heard about something called CBN, and CBN is good for sleep, but you need to know if what you're about to purchase has CBN in it. Well, these are the things that you need to know about reading COAs, because once you scan that QR code, it should take you to the COA for that product, and it'll show you the individual cannabinoids and the concentration of cannabinoids in those products, okay? And most COAs are gonna have the picture associated with it with what was actually tested, okay? One of the things that you should know is how to convert your CBD content and understand the payout based per percent. This is why people lost their mind back in the day. I'm just gonna share this with you real quick. Because there were people, if you notice this COA, this says the total CBD was 19.8%. Let's call it 20% for teaching purposes. Round it up to teach it to 20%, right? So at 20%, there were people out there that would say, hey, if you grow a good crop for biomass, if you grow a good crop for biomass, we will give you $3 per percent per pound, okay? So if somebody's gonna give you $3 per percent per pound, and you have a 20% crop, now let's say on your field, you plant 1,500 plants, and each plant is pulling off a pound of material, so $3 per percent per pound, and you got a 20%, that means each one of those plants is worth $60 on 1 acre. So $60 a plant, 1,500 plants on an acre, that's $90,000 per acre. And that's why people lost their mind back in the day and was just growing all kind of stuff without knowing who was gonna buy it or who was gonna do what, okay? So I'm just saying, it pays to know how to read these COAs so that you don't get hosed over and miss out on a lot of money, okay? Don't worry about that. Pop quiz. What happens when THCA decarboxylates? Anybody other than Theo can answer that. It converts to THC. There you go. Converts over to THC. So understand that that's all decarboxylation is. So right here, the THCA is 0.809, which is already over 0.3. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you look at the Delta 9 THC, that crop is good to go. But if you look at the THCA, and we're talking total THC, depending upon the phase of the plant, that's what becomes the problem, okay? Lots of new information starting to emerge about CBG. So if you grow a crop and it has CBG in it, understand CBG pays a lot more money than just CBD alone. So there's that. This is a story that broke my heart back in Nevada back in 2019, because this farmer grew this crop, and if you look at this, so this is a report of analysis, it's not an actual COA. This is from the Department of Agriculture. So on this report of analysis, if you look at the Delta 9 THC, none detected. So if they were playing by big Fed rules, he was good to go. But if you look at the THCA content, 0.77, you multiply that by 0.877 and add it to Delta 9, that's over 0.3 total THC. They had to destroy that crop. So it all depends on whose rules you're playing by, whether we're talking federal or state level, or we're talking, is that plant growing out of the ground, or has it been harvested? So the safest practice is when it's growing out of the ground, be below 0.3 total THC. But then when you start formulating products with that in mind, make sure you're under 0.3 Delta 9 THC for your finalized products, okay? So once again, there's the calculation total versus, just Delta 9 THC. And we won't go over that again. And I've already kind of talked about this. This was for Texas Department of Agriculture. They monitor the green stuff, like I said before. Growing out of the ground, Department of Agriculture monitors the green stuff. The minute that it's cut, it switches authorities. So you have to be aware of that. And we talk about the state of Texas, it says right, this is DISHES, Department of Safety Health Services. It says right here, acceptable THC means Delta 9 THC. See that? So when it was growing out of the ground, total THC. But now we're talking stuff that's getting ready to go down your throat to be consumed, Delta 9 THC. So you got to know the difference between the two. And also they talk about, finalized products, testing for residual solvents, heavy metals, pesticides. That's when testing becomes really expensive, because like they were talking about on that last panel, Every time that you test, you have to test for everything. You can't test for just cannabinoids. I think that's dumb myself, because when the plant is still on your property and still growing, it's not going anywhere. So you can do quality checks. We used to have people do this all the time. They would pay for their own quality check just to see where the cannabinoid concentration was while it was growing. But when it got around 0.2, they would call the Department of Agriculture to come out and take the official tests, okay, and still be below 0.3. And then before it left the property, that's when not only do you test for cannabinoids, you're also still testing for heavy metals, pesticides, residual solvents. Because if you don't test for that stuff before it leaves your property and it goes somewhere else and somebody gets sick and lawsuits start coming back, well, when they hit you, they can't sue you because you proved that it was clean product before it left your property, okay? There's that. And this was something that was kind of disturbing to me when I had my lab open, because I went and actually, that Delta 8 stuff came out, had to give it a try, right? I went and got a Delta 8 gummy, and man, I got MC hammered. I woke up the next day, I was like, what has the weed man sold me? So I was like, wait a minute, I own the lab, we need to test this, right? So we tested it. It came back negative for everything except residual solvents. And this was the list of residual solvents that we were testing for. It came back negative for everything except ethylene glycol. Know what that is? Antifreeze. So I had a gummy in my mouth that had antifreeze in it. Now, because of the cooling techniques and some of the equipment, something could have leaked, some antifreeze could have leaked out of a piece of equipment. I don't know, but all I know is there was antifreeze in that gummy. So that's why you have to be careful with some of these products and know how to read COAs and make sure that those COAs are good to go before you put that stuff down your throat, okay? Yeah, so move on past that. Here's something that you guys need to know about these carts that people are starting to consume, right? When people have these carts, there's a concept that you need to be aware of called leaching, because a lot of people don't know about leaching, okay? So when you have that bare cart, you have a metal core and you have glass. But when you fill it with oil or distillate, okay, sometimes they're using distillate mixed with some other things, now you got an oil sitting against that metal coil. Properties from the metal over time will leach their way into the oil. Most of the glass, for a lot of things, is manufactured in China, where they don't have certain emission standards for glass. So properties from the glass will leach their way into the oil as well. So now you got properties from the metal that leach their way into the oil, properties from the glass that leach their way into the oil. Now you're gonna go and set it on fire and take a big old now you're inhaling heavy metals into your lungs. Be aware. Be aware. That's what this seminar is about. It's about making people aware of this stuff, because those are real things that actually happen, okay? I don't want to pee hot. I'm going to cover this, and then, you know, this will be real fast. There are a couple more segments, but I want to make sure I get through this one for you guys. Now, this is a tragic incident. This is a DEA agent that got fired because he took legal CBD products. DEA got fired for taking legal CBD products because he didn't understand the situation and what he was taking, because he was taking products that said on the label 2018 Farm Bill compliant, which means below 0.3, not THC free, so there's still trace portions. And when we talk drug testing, whenever you go pee in a cup and they send it to a laboratory, the laboratory is going to take some of it and put it into a cup that looks like this, okay? And if you see there are certain strips that test for certain things, and when you turn it to the side, this one is testing for THC, that one's testing for cocaine, amphetamine, opioids, but there's not one there that says CBD. It only says THC, okay? If we continue to look, PCP, barbiturates, this is that 10 panel that they did on me, right? But the only cannabinoid that's on here is THC, not CBD. So initially when you consume something, okay, and if it's got cannabinoids in it, it could potentially initially test positive, because the only thing that it can be positive for is THC. There's no column for CBD on the test. See what I'm saying? Now, with that being said right there, okay, and you know, I put a few additional pictures here, but one of the things that I did, because I got real nosy, I actually went and looked up the Department of, or DOD, I looked up the demand reduction to drug testing policy. Because one of the things I know from being a lab tech, not all labs can afford that very expensive equipment. So what some labs will do is they will contract with other laboratories to do the testing, okay? And within their regulations, it said the purpose of a confirmatory test is to specifically identify, quantify drug presence in specimens identified by initial screening tests and adjunct screening tests if performed. Specimens that presumptively test positive will be confirmed by chromatography and mass spectrometry. Now, for the ladies, this is a real good one. When you thought you were pregnant back in the day, you used to have to, you know, give a little bit, put it on a stick. And if a stick came up positive, guess what? You might be pregnant. But nobody is happy about the initial stick. The first question they ask is, well, how far along are you? You still got to go to the doctor. Because when you first come up positive, that's what's known as a qualitative analysis. It's only the presence or absence of that hormone. But when you go to the doctor and they do further testing, they're looking at the quantity of that certain hormone. It's the same when it comes to testing. See, initially when you come up positive, they're only looking for presence or absence of a substance, presence or absence for THC. But if they want to know how positive you are, they have to send that off for further testing on equipment that looks like this. That $750,000 analyzer I was talking about earlier, that's it. That's called mass spectrometry, gas chromatography equipment, okay? This is the first time when you look at something here, if it initially comes up positive, see, CBD and THC are similar in particle size, but they're different in particle shape. This is the machine that shows that exposes it. So someone could initially come up positive, and if you have enough sense, and if you know your stuff, if they say that you're positive, you tell your employer, how positive am I? That'll cause them to have to send off for this. Because see, when they test you here on one of these cups, that's a $50 cup versus an $800,000 analyzer. What's cheaper for employers? To do this testing on everybody or just the initial test? So that's why a lot of employers have problems with drug screenings and drug tests. And that's why a lot of employers will say, no, you cannot take CBD, because they don't want to pay for the additional testing associated with it if you do come up positive. That's what it's all about. That's coming from a lab tech. And I actually ran this across other lab techs before I started putting this information out there for everyone. So just wanted you to be aware of that. And also, some of these drug testing cups, they can be very expensive too on a retail basis. But even, I looked at the list of tests associated with, this is what's known as a 30 panel. The only two cannabinoids that are on this 30 panel test, K2, synthetic marijuana, and THC. Do you see CBD anywhere on the list? That's why people are so scared of taking CBD products with their employers, because they don't understand drug testing the way that some of us do. So understand, it's possible to consume these products, but just make sure you're protected by not consuming something that has THC in it if you work for a firefighter, paramedic, police, active duty military, or Department of Transportation truck driver, something like that. You don't want products that have THC, because they literally are looking for THC, okay? So that's something to be aware of there, okay? Good? Oh, okay, so lessons learned, and we're kind of winding down to the end. If you're, anybody a grower, anybody growers in this room? Okay, so some lessons learned for growers, all right? Start performing quality checks when you hit the flower phase. When I had my lab open, we were doing those quality checks for $50, because the only thing we were testing for was cannabinoids. That was it. We weren't testing for heavy metals, residual solvents, pesticides. We were just, so when you hit flower, you first start seeing that bud, and you want to know what your cannabinoid concentration is, those are quality checks. You can do those on your own without worrying about the USDA or Department of Agriculture. That's you doing your own testing, and they release those results back to you and you only. Now, when the Ag Department comes out and does their testing, you gonna get a result, the USDA is gonna know, and everybody else is gonna know. But when you're doing your own quality checks along the way, you're actually able to watch that THC creep up, instead of them just randomly coming out and you hoping like you're under 0.3, okay? If it's not a state sample, the results are released back to you. Like I said, I know that applies in Texas. Perform full panels with terpenes before the crop leaves your property. That way you know it was a clean product before it left you, okay? Develop a close working relationship with law enforcement. Do not quit your freaking day job. Most people have these delusions of grandeur that they're gonna just stop working, cash in their 401k, and we're just gonna grow, baby, grow. Do not quit your day job. Don't do it. Work it as a side hustle. It's not your main hustle because you still need benefits. You still need to pay your basic living expenses. Don't quit your day job, okay? Time will either promote you or expose you. Choose wisely. If you have piss poor morals and you're doing shady stuff, it's gonna come back and bite you. It'll come back and bite you hard. You can only dance with the devil so many times before he steps on your toes. So please know that, okay? Any processors or manufacturers, okay? We won't worry about those. Any retailers, anybody who's gonna sell for retail. You know what, we got people that are on the camera, so I'll just cover those real quick. If you are a manufacturer, make sure that the raw material you purchase from someone are full panel tested. Don't purchase products if they have not been full panel tested, okay? Don't try to get away with testing your own distillate or isolate and attaching it to a QR code. Don't do that. Make sure that your QR codes and your products match on your COAs. Pay for quality checks during formulation phase. We already talked about quality checks. Once formulation is right, then do a full panel test. No need to pay for all of that if you're just still perfecting your technique, okay? Develop a close relationship, working relationship with law enforcement. Don't quit your freaking day job. Timely promote your exposure. We already talked about that, okay? Retailers, get trained on reading COAs from ISO accredited laboratories. If they charge a fee, pay it because it benefits you a lot to know exactly how to read a COA, okay? If you purchase a product that only has potency test attached to it, to the QR code, pay for the full panel testing yourself per batch. You do not want to release products to people that have not been full panel tested. Cannabinoids, residual solvents, heavy metals, pesticides. You need to do that. If you white label a product, negotiate full panel testing into your price with the manufacturer. Make sure that that manufacturer knows, hey, I'm going to white label your product, but when it shows up here, it needs to have a full panel test done. If not, I don't want your product, okay? So that needs to be factored into the cost. Develop a little close working relationship with law enforcement. Don't quit your day job. Time will either promote your exposure, okay? Business education versus street reality, all right? This is weed, y'all. It's some people that don't look like you that got the long hair and the tie-dye shirts and those are some of the people that you're going to learn this space from if you're a business professional. Understand, I am where I'm at because of those people. When I first retired from the military, I didn't have any of this knowledge. I started hanging out with some cool people like Ryan Early. Shout out to Ryan, all right? Started hanging out with them. And, you know, you standing around trying to learn. Next thing you know, you standing in a circle not knowing what's going on, right? And then they start passing around a circle, and then it comes to you, and it's like, oh, God, I ain't no square. Give me that, right? So understand that if you are a business professional, you're going to have to hang around some people that don't look like you to understand this industry and know how to really navigate and maneuver and work it. Understand that that is a reality of this space, and they are the subject matter experts of how to grow this plant, how to process it. You're the subject matter expert at making money. When they're ready to know how to make money, they need to talk to you. But when you're ready to learn how to grow that plant and how to process it, you need to learn from them. If you're learning, shut the front door. I wanted to say something else, but you know, if you're learning, let people teach you. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You're supposed to spend more time listening and talking, so absorb the information. Good manufacturing practices, or GMP, that's a major certification when it comes to consumable products. Make sure products that you're consuming or products that you're manufacturing are GMP compliant, okay? What is a broker joker? That's somebody who makes you promises that they have all these connections, they can do all of this stuff, and then you never hear back from them. Know the difference between a joker broker versus a real deal maker in this space. People who like literally do things and can show you proof that they've done them. Those are the people that you want to deal with in this space, okay? What is escrow? Escrow is basically when you want to get something done. Let's say you wanted to buy one of those lab testing pieces of equipment, and you want to talk to somebody, like you said, hey, JJ, I want to buy one of those, fancy pieces of equipment. The first thing I'm going to say is, well, do you have funds sitting in escrow right now to prove that you can purchase that? Because if so, I'll put you in touch with somebody. But if you don't have money sitting in escrow, don't come back to me until you do. Because if I tell them you want to buy it and all you want to do is fish for information, now you're going to make me look like a jackwagon in front of these people and destroy my credibility. So make sure if you're going to do something, you have funds sitting in escrow, or you're ready to show some kind of proof of funds statement or something to further whatever cause it is you're trying to get done and accomplish. How to minimize getting hosed, okay? Letter of intent. If you're going to do something, be able to prove it on a letter of intent. Be ready to sign NDAs. A lot of times when people are doing contracts, legal contracts, they are willing to provide some. If you're like someone who's going to grow for someone, if that person who wants you to grow for them should probably have a little bit of money to help you purchase seed and things like that up front. If somebody says, well, we're not going to pay you anything, but you take all the risks, and if that's not a good person to team up with. Okay, keep that in mind. Be leery of tolling arrangements. Tolling arrangements are basically where you don't have money for processing, but you can get your equipment to them, or you can get your material to them to process it, whether it's for the fiber, the grain, or if it's for cannabinoids. You can get your material to them, and instead of paying them in cash, they're going to keep some of what you sent them as payment and then give the rest back to you. Okay? So be leery of tolling agreements if they are not, just if you're not familiar with them, make sure you consult with somebody who can't help you with the tolling agreement. Okay? Proof of funds, money in escrow, we kind of talked about that. Standard operating procedures. If somebody wants you to grow for them, they should be willing to give you an SOP for how to grow it. On this day, you plant these many seeds on this acre. Make sure that the soil pH is this. Make sure that the nitrogen content is this, so on and such. If they can't provide you with the standard operating procedure of how to grow it, don't do it if they can't provide you with an SOP. Okay? Consider a consultant if it's your first grow. That is huge. Make sure you consult with somebody if you don't know what you're doing. Master your ability to become permanently unimpressed with the shiny stuff. Learn to see better than you can hear. And please stop by your local law enforcement to introduce yourself and show your permits. Because I am a firm believer is if you're doing something legit and real, there should be no problem. And if it's hemp-based, there should be no problem with you going by, talking to law enforcement, saying, hey, here's who I am, here's what I'm growing, come by anytime, right? If you're doing something legit and real. So understand that. Bonus information, there are all kinds of products in Walmart right now that are made with hemp. Now, this one is a little bit deceptive. What's up? Okay, so what you have to look at, you got to look at the branding on this stuff. Because looking at this, you see that leaf, and we all know what's up with that leaf, right? But when you take it a step further, 100% natural hemp seed oil. That's from seed oil. It's not from the leaves. It's from the seed oil. You turn it over on the back. Cannabis sativa seed oil. So that's a little bit of deceptive marketing. So you got to be aware of that stuff, okay? There are certain banks that will give you bank accounts to deal with hemp or marijuana based on which state that you're in. You got to know those banks. Not all banks bank in cannabis. You got to know certain banks. I know for a fact Herring Bank will give you an account. I have great relationships with Andrew Escamilla. He's the one who runs the program for that particular financial institution. I also have friends at First Citizens Bank. First Citizens Bank is the bank that bought out Silicon Valley Bank back in the day, okay? And they have an amazing team. Ryan Palmquist is a personal friend, so I'm able to get people situated with, cannabis banking accounts. If you're in a state that has legal marijuana or a state that has hemp, we can get you access to both of those. You need a payment processor or a merchant processor that processes in cannabis. Because not all, if you sign up with someone like, it's not PayPal, it's not, what's that? Square. Well, Square is good. Square is good for CBD, because I use Square for my business.
I heard Square is real funky with their banking when it comes to CBD.
Well, so you said Square and you said banking. They're two different things. Because Square is just a merchant processor. but you have to still have a bank for that money to go to. So you got to make sure you have a good merchant processor and a good bank. If not, and they're not in congruence, you could have some problems. So just know that. There are banks that are actually doing hempcrete construction loans now. This is a small bank in Georgia, a mom and pop, but they actually granted a hempcrete construction loan for this guy. So yeah, so look them up, go read about it, go see about it for yourself. They actually did a hempcrete construction loan for him, okay? This is an app that's real good for cannabis transactions, okay? It's called Helix. You can look that up for yourself, see what it's all about. That's a QR code if you wanted to get established, you know, with Helix. You could do that there. Blue Magic. This is a product that my buddy Theo has out at his booth. Be aware of that one. That's a real good one, because if you're worried about mold, powdery mildew, spider mites, things like that during a grow, my buddy Ryan Early, who owns that product, they found a hemp plant growing in nature that was not affected by bugs or pests. They wanted to know why, so they took it inside and did some research, and they found a special terpene associated with that plant that was not affected by bugs or pests. So they were able to take that terpene, reproduce it, and put it in this. So when you use this when you're growing, you don't, if you use it throughout the grow, you don't have problems with mold, spider mites, powdery mildew, or any of those things. But you got to use it throughout the grow, and you can even use it while you're drying as well. So it's real good for that. That's what Blue Magic actually looks like right there, okay? We already talked about that. These are all the pages that I own. These are all of the members that are on all the pages that I own. It's probably somewhere around, you know, a few thousand people. Well, my Texas page has gone up a lot, you know, since I did this update. But that just kind of shows you some kind of idea. If you're not doing good business, there are low-key black market, not black market, but blacklists that are out there. If you're doing bad business, you'll end up on a hemp blacklist. So please be careful. Make sure you're doing good business at all times, okay? This is a little video on cannabis law. Don't have time to play it, but it's a real good video if you want to look it up, because it talks about why certain CBD products are illegal versus not. That's the picture of it right there. You can find it on YouTube, okay? And one of the last things that I had, oh, did I put it in there? Nope, I didn't put it in there. Now we're not gonna worry about that. We're not gonna worry about that. We're not gonna worry about that. This is the last thing I'm gonna leave y'all with right here. That's a real statement. The toes you step on today might be connected to the foot in your ass tomorrow. Be kind and move with good intent, okay? Because this is one of those spaces where it doesn't take a lot to ruin your good name. Now, I know that this was a small turnout for what I'm doing, but I hope the people that are watching this got a lot of content, because who knows who's gonna see this, and who knows what you guys are gonna do when you leave this room. And who knows the stories that you're going to tell when this stranger showed up and gave y'all all of this information that you could go back and watch on YouTube again yourself, and y'all are the ones that are killing it, you know, a year from now when I'm able to come back here again. So I hope this information was good for you, and if you got any questions, I will take them, and we can talk a little bit further about things, but I just want to make sure y'all had the opportunity to go through as much of this stuff as possible.
You said this is gonna be on YouTube?
Yes, sir. So
Because I missed the first part of it.
did you get my first,
Disappointing, I didn't get the first.
did you get my very first slide?
I did not.
So my very first slide, let me do this instead of, because I want you to take a picture. Yes, I will be here tomorrow at the expo. Sure. Okay. Thank you, man. I hope that was very valuable. I hope that was good for you. I'm gonna give you one of my business cards.
I really appreciate that.
And what I want you to do.
I didn't realize you were gonna have to. This is by far the best. Any of the forums.
That is my, that is on hemp paper, number one.
It's on hemp paper?
Yes, sir. And that is my direct cell phone number. And from that actual website, which is on my card right here, www.jjgro.com, okay? Whenever you go to that, show you right where to find the seminar. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do you one better, because I got a little bit of time. I'm gonna hit copy. And what is your cell phone number?
808.
Okay, let's see here. 808.
265.
Come on, hold on. 808